Hi, everyone. Strange days for everyone with COVID-19 pandemic, and we certainly feel for those whose health has been affected by this. I'm joined by South Carolina women's tennis coach Kevin Epley. And from a college athletics standpoint, spring sports were about a month into their seasons when they were canceled due to COVID-19. And coach, let's talk about that. How are you and your family doing health-wise, and how has it been for you in dealing with this whole situation?
Well, I like everybody. It hit us. It hit us pretty hard. I mean, we were mid-season, and all of a sudden, our season is over. We had a good feeling of that. I guess the night before. I can't remember the exact date, but it was. I guess it was a Wednesday when the NBA basically shut down, and we just knew that the impact was going to be widespread from there. And so it impacted us. We knew that the season was probably going to be short-lived at that point, but I guess as from a familial standpoint, Tammy, my fiance, is a respiratory therapist, so she's on the front lines of this every day, and so we've been dealing with it probably a little bit different. I mean, as far as all families with healthcare workers and their family, I mean, it's you're always looking at the projected people that are coming into the hospital, because it's always this sort of hospital overwhelmed aspect that has been the real issue here. I mean, if these hospitals get overwhelmed, like Northern Italy and Wuhan and so on, you get these high death rates. And but it's also the exposure to the patients that actually have COVID-19 and coming home each night. We have 2 kids. And the dynamic involved with, well, you have to be in the war to fight this thing. You have to be in the war as a healthcare worker to save it. But man, we just want to feel safe at home. So it adds a little extra level of stress. But we're doing things. We've ordered a bunch of supplies. We're making face masks and stuff because a lot of these hospitals are undersupplied. And we just, people in the community can help out in various ways. But we have 2 daughters, a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, and we just want to make sure that they're safe. So Tammy's going to, the nth degree to make sure she's well protected when she's in these environments.
Wow, I know that can be stressful with what you're going through there at home. Obviously, you have other people that you're looking after as well. How are your student athletes doing from a health standpoint? I'm sure there's been some communication, even though you don't see each other every day.
Yeah, I mean, we communicate. As of now, I've been communicating with them one-on-one, texting, calling, and so on. Pretty soon, we're going to set up a Zoom call and do one of these team meetings and so on. But tennis is an international sport, so we have players that come from all over the world. And it just so happens that one of our players is from Northern Italy, so her family's stuck up there. Sylvia Canelato on lockdown there with, what must have been a pretty scary scenario, being up there as this pandemic was reaching its peak and the death rates and so on. Then we had another young lady that's from Spain, Gabby Asensi. So she flew back to Spain, and Spain was also hit pretty hard. And then we have Megan Davis, who's in England. Both Megan and Gabby were able to get back home safely. So that was nice. Sylvia underwent surgery here. She's had a knee issue that's been bothering her all year that we were kind of patching with shots and rehab and so on. So she was able to get surgery here, and she's still here. She can't get back to Northern Italy because of the travel situation. And then all the other girls are they're home and they're negotiating their lives and trying to work out, trying to practice and so on. But it's real difficult as we get into lockdown scenarios and tennis courts are closing and that sort of thing.
How hard was it for those that were able to go home? How hard was it to arrange for them, given that all the travel restrictions and things that are going on?
It wasn't as hard as you would think, to be honest. And even when this thing was quite catastrophic in Northern Italy early on, in a roundabout way, taking a circuitous route, Sylvia could have gotten back home. She just elected to stay so she could do her rehab. Gabby getting back to Spain. I mean, Spain was shutting down. She got home the day before Spain shut down flights from the U.S. and Megan was able to get back. I don't know, about 10 days ago. So it wasn't as hard as you would think. But obviously, it was a little scary because here we are trying to distance ourselves and so on, and you end up in these airports, and airports are obviously hubs for all sorts of travel. So you can't really account for how much of the virus exists in those particular spaces. But luckily, they all got home, and everybody seems safe at this point.
You mentioned that the student athletes were doing different things to try to keep themselves in shape and keep their mind occupied while taking care of their bodies as well. Anything specific that you have them doing to stay in shape?
Well, we have Alex Buckman, our strength coach, has sent them some workouts, and I think some of them are getting creative because most of these workout facilities are closed down. Some of them are getting on YouTube and working out that way. As far as tennis courts go, it's really hit or miss. We have some of them that are able to hit, others that were able to hit up until a couple days ago. The USTA just came out, incidentally. It's been about 5 or 6 days where they basically recommended that you don't play tennis at all. So that's had an effect on most of the tennis facilities. A lot of these clubs have locked the gates and taken down the nets and that sort of thing. So we're just kind of like everybody, just trying to piece things together in any way that we can. Tennis is our branch, and just trying to stay motivated is another thing. Everybody had these tournaments coming up, and a lot of these tournaments shut down for the entire summer, so they have nothing to look forward to. So the day-to-day drudgery, why should I be working kind of thing, I think creeps in, so hopefully we get through this sooner rather than later, so we can get back to at least some level of normalcy and get back to some regular schedules with conditioning, strength training, and tennis.
Coach, take us back to March 12th. Your team is getting ready that morning to hop on a bus to Knoxville for a matchup at Tennessee. Things have been going well up to that point. And then the SEC announced that competitions at that time were suspended until March 30th. Tell us a little bit about that day.
Well, that was the day after the NBA, at that time, March 11th and so on, everything was sort of, okay, we're going to play in empty stadiums. But once one player was infected in the NBA, it became player-to-player transmission was the issue. So I had a pretty good feeling that we were either going to go on the trip to Tennessee and Georgia and be called off the trip on Saturday, or we wouldn't go on the trip at all. And things were unfolding. New guidelines, new protocols were unfolding every hour. Okay, so you're going to go on the trip, but you got to make sure you sterilize the bus and the rooms and that kind of thing. You got to order in. And we showed up to the courts that morning to catch our bus, and the bus was there. We had everything. We were supposed to leave, I think it was 9:30. And I knew the ADs were having a meeting about how to proceed with basically basketball, all the sports at that time, the winter sports and spring sports. And I just had a feeling that we were not going to be going on that trip. So I just talked to the bus driver. I called my SWA and said, look, can we wait till after this meeting? Let's just practice here and see what comes of it. And so we delayed the bus until 12:30. And so the bus just kind of camped out there. We moved down to the courts to practice, and we went into our video room. And I sort of explained to them basically what I knew about the virus and that I didn't think we were going to be traveling, just to kind of set them up because I knew that was coming. And we practiced. And I don't know if a lot of the girls knew the severity of it at that point because we were kind of going about our lives pretty normally. And they're young. And obviously the impact on the young in some regards is less than some of the older people and so on. And they were going about their lives. But as we were practicing, I guess it was about 11:15, we got a call that everything was canceled, and they were pretty devastated by it. Gosh, I mean, some of these seniors, and we're whining. We're 4-0 in the SEC. We had the best record in the SEC, starting to hit our stride, and we just really felt like we were getting some momentum. And so it was difficult news for everybody, but the message was, look, I mean, everybody has difficult news right now. Everybody's shutting down. It's going to go on a little while, and this is just how life goes. It's bigger than sports at the moment. We just gotta roll with it. So, and I think, I guess it was the next day the NCAA said seniors and then potentially the underclassmen would be getting an extra year of eligibility. So that provided some relief. And then it was just a matter of picking up the pieces and trying to find ways to get back home and be safe.
Obviously, everything is canceled now. Was that one of the tougher coaching moments for you in your career to look at a team that obviously had a lot of promise and tell them that they're shut down? I mean, I know everybody's shut down, but what was that like for you?
It was really hard in some regards. I wouldn't say it was the toughest moment of my life because or in my coaching career, because I also knew the threat of the virus was out there. I had a lot of inhibition about bringing these kids on a trip and getting into restaurants or getting out there around people when this thing was going on. So it just seemed like it was the right thing to do at the time, but it is still hard. It's still very difficult to look at a team that's 4-0 in the SEC with all of the trials and work that we had been throughout the season, and really feel like we were getting some footing and we were going to find our way, and then have to say, you know what, it's over. And I think Emma, in particular, a freshman who was undefeated, hadn't lost a match since October, was really just so excited to keep this thing going and learning every day. And some of the seniors really took it hard. So it was hard. It was hard to go through it for sure. But in the end, if you look at it, you just got to keep that bigger perspective that it was the right thing to do.
And finally, Coach, is there any kind of silver lining that you found in this, or something that you've learned that will help you from either a professional or a personal standpoint?
Well, I've learned that tiger keepers are nuts.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I think like a lot of us, I mean, we're in the rat race, we're running every day, and we come home and we have some time with our family that we initially don't have. I've had a lot of time with my family, and things have slowed down in some ways, and that's nice. It just sort of, it helps you get perspective as well in terms of, all the things you have. And we talk a lot about gratitude with the team and just be grateful for every day that we have out there as an opportunity. And hopefully their spirits are being fortified as they sit home without the capacity to be on the tennis court, not be on the team, not being challenged every day. And hopefully they come back, we can pick up where we left off, but just with a better perspective about what's important in life and how fragile things can be. And we don't know. I mean, we're sitting in the middle of it right now, right? So we don't know how this is going to play out per se, and hopefully life gets back to normal sooner rather than later, like I said. But I think we're all going to have a slightly different perspective. And also, one other thing we're learning is how communities can kind of coalesce and come together and help each other out. In our particular case with Tammy, being out there on the front lines, people don't think about respiratory therapists that much, but all of a sudden they've been, thrust into this role where they're the soldiers in this war we're all in. I mean, these are the ones that are operating the ventilators, and you just get a different perspective of what's important, and it's just important to keep all of that perspective in mind, and hopefully when we get back to some normalcy again, we can carry some of that newfound perspective with us.
Coach, great stuff. I really appreciate the time, and best wishes to you and your family as we get through this.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Stay safe.
All right. For Coach Kevin Epley, I'm Brad Muller. Have a great day.